Hi, and welcome to Radical Resilience. I'm Neelam.
And I'm Susanna, and we're two best friends talking about wellness in the wild world that we are living in right now.
As a reminder, this shouldn't replace the medical advice you get from your doctor. In this episode, we are going to talk to Kelley Palmer about how to have an accessible home yoga and wellness practice during the pandemic and beyond.
Let's begin with contextualizing this conversation. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, and when this started about a year ago, all of a sudden we were all at home, and many of us are still at home.
We were forced to redefine our space for wellness. All of a sudden, we couldn't go to the gyms. We couldn't go on hikes sometimes, definitely not the bar. Our friends' homes were off limits. So many of us, it meant we had to find a space for yoga, wellness, meditation, space away from the people we live with, and figure out ways to connect with others in our community in a whole new way.
When we're asking, what can yoga and wellness practices look like? What can they and do they look like now? It's important to remember that yoga and self-care have many, many benefits. According to Healthline, there are mental, physical, and emotional benefits. Lower blood pressure, reduction in anxiety, calming the nervous system, cardiovascular health, reducing inflammation, more energy, brighter moods, increasing sleep, and also managing stress. The thing is, yoga is a practice, but it's also a way of being and a lifestyle, and we can practice it throughout our entire lives. It's how we live. It's in our relationships. It's in the fights that we diffuse or that we don't have. It's in how we approach challenges and how we show up for our friends. There's so many ways to practice.
And self-care and yoga can look like a lot of different things. It could be gardening or exercise. It could be listening to music, taking a luxurious bath, just having some alone time. Maybe it's watching a comedy or connecting with our loved ones and family.
But practicing at home and in our daily lives can have many challenges. We might be wondering, and you might be wondering with us, how do I do this? How do I practice yoga when I get on the mat and I'm distracted by the dust bunnies under my desk or by the laundry that needs to get folded? Where can I practice yoga or meditation? How can I deal with distractions, and who can I learn from? How do I have the space for self-care?
Yeah, without this going to the gym, it's really hard to define the space for self-care versus the space for making food versus the space for childcare. This self-care and yoga and wellness as we know it, it's just not accessible in the same way. And it's not accessible in the same way for everyone. We know that workers who have no choice but to go back to work before there was testing, before there was vaccines, many of those essential workers are women. It was 76% women in healthcare that had to go back to work. Government and community-based services had 73%, and people of color too, which make up the majority of essential workers in food and agriculture, in industrial, commercial, and residential facilities and services. Many of those essential workers don't have college degrees, and 1 in 10 of those essential workers didn't even have a high school diploma. So this is not necessarily people who have a whole lot of time and energy and resources to go out and find spaces for yoga outside their home. Maybe self-care is a luxury that a lot of us feel like we can't afford.
This is so important. And so both, Neelam, you and I work to practice in ways that bring radical resilience just right where we are in our own lives, in our communities, as organizers, for you as a healthcare worker, for me as a yoga and meditation teacher. And we're excited to share how we do this and also to be in conversation with Kelley Palmer. So I'm going to introduce Kelley, our special guest for this episode. Kelley Nicole Palmer is a Black, queer, creative, and community advocate based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Kelley uses the practices and philosophies of yoga to guide her work in creating equitable and sustainable access to wellness for BIPOC. Along with teaching movement, meditation, and contemplative practices, Kelley leads retreats, hosts workshops, and contributes to multiple teacher training programs. She's a writer and collage artist, focusing her work on Black liberation, wholeness, and healing. She serves as a founding member of the Sanctuary in the City, a Charlotte-based nonprofit that focuses on equitable healing spaces for BIPOC all over the world. Kelley also serves as a trainer for Accessible Yoga Training School. Welcome to Kelley. And so I'd love to start by asking, like right now, how are you feeling about your experience with wellness, and how has yoga or mindfulness wellness shaped you?
First, I want to say thank you. I'm grateful to be here and be able to share with you and the listeners. That question holds a lot of different things. So right now, how I feel is the most whole I've ever felt, the most belonging, and not because anything has really changed in the world in a substantial way. I don't actually feel like anything has changed substantially in the last 10 years, right, around race and wellness. I think there have been changes, but not substantial ones. And so this way I feel, this wholeness that I'm experiencing, I think is better paired to the realization that I can create a space that I'd like to be in, that I can support others that are creating space, that this shared experience that Black folks and BIPOC folks have, queer folks have, of knowing that we're not welcome in a space has emboldened us to stop trying to force ourselves into places that don't want us. It has invited us to create spaces that are ours, that are for us, that center us, and to do it unapologetically without being on eggshells about the ramifications in our work lives or in our community circles. That feels like a gift. It feels like a glimpse of liberation to just know that I could go and practice yoga on the computer with hundreds of other people of color at any time during the day, almost for free or nothing, and know that those teachers are being paid well. That feels equitable to me, and that makes me feel hopeful, right? Not because of what dominant culture is doing, though.
No, and I think that is such a powerful part of the magic that you bring and so many others too is creating those spaces. And that, I mean, I'm curious about this because I want to ask you about your wellness practice during the pandemic. But the thing is, it's like we're in the pandemic, but the pandemic of racism has been going on for our whole lives and before, all of our lives here and the folks listening. And so you didn't just start these liberatory structures this year. Like the seeds for them have been planted for a long time. And so I do want to ask, what does your wellness practice look like during this pandemic, but also, broader as well?
Right. I think I appreciate you naming that. When I think about this time period, this pandemic, it feels like a magnifying glass in terms of many things, not just what's wrong, but what's right, what's necessary. And so my wellness practice during this time, this stage of being Black and living in Western society has looked like working less. It's looked like sleeping in. It's looked like taking trips safely. It has looked like making really extraordinary meals at home. And it's also looked like ordering pizza. It's looked like roller skating and hula hooping. And it's also looked like undoing the story I have about my value being connected to what I provide externally, and really leaning back into the notion that if I don't do anything, if I don't make another thing, if I don't host another workshop about race, I am valuable because I existed. Like my existence was impactful because I was breathing with other humans. And I've been trying to center my practice around that. I've been trying to center my practice around breathing and being without feeling like I have to be super productive or be great at homeschool or finish writing a book or make the most amount of money. And that's hard to do because this wellness industry, the industrial complex of wellness has really tried to make this time period all about pivoting and all about how to continue earning and continue to be inequitable, even in the midst of all this equity talk. I'm invited to know that this great magnifying glass can say, like, look at all of the things that are part of wellness and how I participate, how organizations I support or work with might participate. And let us be clear about what is fueling the problem and what is going to lead us to more and more solutions, and releasing the rest, releasing even teaching in person. I know people want to be back doing that, and I do miss it. And also I feel personally as a person, I feel pressured back to it. And I don't want to be pressured back to it. I don't feel safe, and people can have their own stories or judgments around that, but I don't feel like this solution that's been offered to us is rooted in making sure that people are well. It's rooted in returning us to what put us in this place in the first place. And I don't say that as an encouragement for people to not do the necessary things, right? Follow the safety precautions, do the things. And also we can still pause and reevaluate if yoga studios need to reopen in the way that they were before. I have my own opinion. The answer is no. And I know that won't be popular, right? It won't be popular.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see this pandemic as a portal, where we can like really think, like you're talking about a magnifying glass, and really think like, what do we want to continue? And what do we want to do different? Like we have an opportunity to almost like throw out the rule book and figure it out ourselves. The question is like, what does equitable healing spaces for Black people, for people of color look like? How is that different than what exists now? I'm sure there's a lot that's different, but when you vision it out, when you are on your vision board and kind of making all the pieces come together in this time period, what comes to you?
I'll be honest and say that I've kind of thrown away the vision of what it is at the end, because I'm sitting with the knowing that as smart as I might want to prop myself up as informed, aware, well-read, well-spoken, I haven't existed outside of an equitable system. And as much as I might want to reclaim my imagination and be in that deep practice, I can't imagine it completely equitable because it's all still right there. All the inequity is still right inside of me, inside my thinking. And so to answer your question, I don't know what it really looks like. I know what it doesn't look like. And I know that if we continue to name the things that aren't working, we can continue to evolve it. I always like to bring Coretta Scott King into the room because I feel like she's under-celebrated as a thought leader and writer and teacher and humanitarian. And I think that it's one thing that she says that's really important that I want to bring into the room is that each of us, each generation of people, we have this new obligation to liberation. And I feel like for the most part, especially in America, there were certain things like integration that occurred, and it was used to lull people of color into a place of like, well, they let us have what they have. Right? We can live wherever we want, go to school wherever we want, we can buy a house wherever we want. And those are good things because we want to be able to have things too. but it also lulled us into a place of upholding what they said was right, best, and good, and not being dependent upon our own ancestral beliefs and traditions, many of which we don't even hold on to or know. I talk about it with my mom often, and just this space of, we thought we were in a post-racial world, but we were not. We are not. If each of us is thinking that our vision is the end vision, we get held every time we make the vision. And it's like, no, the vision I have is just some steps forward. The person who has the next 100 steps might not even be born yet. So all I can do is be really connected to the steps I can see, be in a space of investigating why I think those are the steps, be in a space of collaboration with other people who have different perspectives, carry different levels of awareness, so that my steps are informed by their voices too. I hate to talk about it that way sometimes, especially as a teacher, because it seems so big that I know that most people will opt out. And also, I think that it's important for people to know that their small steps are part of this really big thing that we can't even conceptualize. Right? The decision to start offering scholarships for yoga offerings, at this point, I feel like I don't, and I also know I'm in a silo of people that are doing the work. I feel like at this point within the silo where I live, I never see an offering that's not sliding scale with scholarships available. But I also still hear about the harm that comes along with the scholarship application, the questions that are being asked, and the way that information is disseminated to the folks on the scholarship list versus the people who paid full price. And so it might look like the whole thing is equitable, but it's not. Or even as I run mutual aid funds through the sanctuary in the city with the other folks we're all working there to distribute resources to Black and brown people don't want to take the help from us, or they think there are strings attached, or that they have to publicly thank us and say exactly what we did or what we gave. But part of our mission is to be non-transactional, but it's kind of hard to be non-transactional when we're holding several thousand and you're asking us for a couple of hundred. All of that is still swirling. I don't know if that makes sense, if that's landing with y'all, but it puts me in the place of knowing I don't know what equitable yoga is going to look like. I don't know what equitable wellness is going to look like. I know that if we continue questioning, if we continue new practices, if we continue reading and collaborating and talking about it, we get further and further away from what we know is definitely not equitable. And maybe in 10 generations, it's like everybody has every single thing they need. Maybe in 10 generations. The way things is going this week, I'm 22 generations, because we've taken some mega steps backwards this week in terms of awareness, right?
Yeah, just for context, there was for our listeners, we're recording this on the day after there's a lot of violence that occurred from against Asian women.
From a white terrorist in America. From a white
terrorist, yeah. Definitely. We have to name that. And, we're all just sitting with that right now. But I'm curious as to what your steps are. When you think about your 3 steps that you're doing, what does that look like for you?
Resting. That's step number 1. I don't think that anything can be restorative, sustainable, or equitable from a depleted space. And so I just was speaking to it today on social media of I don't want to do all this stuff. I don't want to do all this posting. I don't want to speak at every single thing. I don't want to. I can't, because I need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, but I also need time to prepare and consume meals. I need time for going outside because the weather is picking up. I have a new cat I want to pet. I have so many things that are just being things that I feel a little irritated sometimes with God, you want me to do things? I haven't finished being to start the doing. So rest is number 1. And rest is more than just sleeping, right? It's laughing with my partner. It's listening to dumb knock-knock jokes from a 7-year-old. They're not dumb if you're listening to this 7-year-old. These very interesting knock-knock jokes from 7-year-olds that don't really have a clear punchline for me in age 40 body and mind. Let me say that. That's resting too. And It's like when people send me like back-to-back emails, I'm like, the first thing I always say is, I hope that you get some rest after this, because I know that person is just sitting there pounding out emails all day, and that's been normalized for us. But we're literally in a pandemic. If we're just talking about the United States, we're talking about over 500,000 humans that are not here anymore. And while I know some, I don't know all of them. And it's like, this is just the people that died from that. We're in a collective grief state. People have not been able to live the lives they had been imagining since they were children. I don't want to work through that. I want to rest through that. I want to eat through that. I want to have fun through that, because I can't control it, right? And so rest, if nothing else, rest. And a rest that centers your joy. The second is being in a real deep dive around myself. This place of holding space, being a space holder and teaching about race and equity. If a teacher is holding the position that they can't learn, there's nothing for them to learn. They're not really interested in teaching, because teaching is learning too. It's being in community with other people. What I'm learning is that I could be in community with people in Charlotte, where I call home. I could be in community with people in New Jersey, where I also call home. I could also be in community with y'all in Florida and California. And I'm in a teacher training right now with somebody in Africa. It's the middle of the night every time we're meeting. Like, I can be in community with so many people. And I have not done all of the work that I need to do to dismantle all of the things that rob me of the ability to see the variation that is going to come in front of me. And that shows up as harm, as us misgendering folks, making assumptions about people's backgrounds, about people's experiences, us using words that make people feel like they don't belong, that they aren't valued or seen in a space. Because, like we already spoke to, I'm still resting in the same system everybody else is. I have to be continually in a practice of saying, like, well, why do I hold that to be true? Why do I address it this way? Why am I allowing people to talk to me or interact with me in this way? What am I upholding by choosing this kind of dress or this kind of language or this kind of food? Like, I can continually be in that process, knowing that I won't ever be finished. And that's my second practice right now of how can I be most whole, is to really sit with myself and do a lot of freaking shadow work. And not like they show on the reels, right? Not like, lighting incense and whatever else, like co-opted rituals. I'm talking about having honest conversations with the people that you're living with or trapped with in your house space about how you show up, or being clear about why situations have ended, begun, unraveled, are thriving, are not thriving, being rested and resourced enough to sit with that discomfort and make a decision about how you're going to shift or change. Amber Carnes and I were friends and colleagues. We talk about, like, healing feels like someone kicked you off a stool sometimes onto a cold marble floor. And so there's been a lot of kicking myself off of the stool, a pedestal that I've placed myself on, right? And being okay with the discomfort of landing on that marble floor. Stay down there for a little while. Look around. See what else you're ignoring. And so that's the second. And then the third is having boundaries. I shared in a lot of different spaces. Kelley only works Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's it. That's not to say that I won't make an appearance in a teacher training or a festival or some other foolishness on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're never going to catch me working on a Monday. You can forget about it. But people have a problem with it. They have a problem that I don't have an autoresponder. They have a problem that I took 48, 72, 7 days, 10 days to respond to an email that's about something in 2024. And it's like, people, I have these boundaries for a reason. I've already explained I have a lot of being to do. I've worked a lot in 40 years. So I almost feel like this is a reparation of not only my labor, but the labor of all my ancestors to say, I don't answer emails Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And you'll be okay getting a response from me on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And like not even explaining it. So it's not even that the boundaries are so much external as they are internal, of catching myself to say like, you don't need to explain yourself right now. Or like, you don't need to clarify something that is clear in the email. You can just say to them, refer to the previous email. Like having these boundaries for myself so that I can do these other two practices, because they take a lot. Because then I still gotta parent, partner, work, pay bills. I just went through a whole rabbit hole with my partner this morning about electricity. Who owns electricity? Because they're taking all my money. We've agreed to it. We have agreed to pay for something that is a naturally occurring
There's so much that needs to change. There's so much that needs to change.
But I don't know what the change of that is, but I can know I'm going to change how I view resources, how I resource myself, what I uphold as the most important thing, and be in a real practice of being okay with dumping out the contents of what I think is true about myself, about other people, about the world. I could do this every single day and there would be no harm. I could only see the good of it.
I mean, what you're talking to, it's like a radical rest and reexamination. Like, and the boundaries are just so important to have the container for that radical rest and reexamination. It's just absolutely essential as we, think about doing things differently.
To me, boundaries have been one of the biggest things that people have struggled with in this time period, because different people's proximity to safety means that different people have expectations about what's possible and what's not possible, or what's a priority and what's not a priority. And I'm not here to make a judgment about it. And also I can say, as a person who has the extreme privilege of being able to work completely from home and be partnered with someone else who can do that, to then be able to keep our children completely at home, that's a real privilege. There's a lot of things that I've wanted to do that, because of the boundaries I set for myself, I couldn't do them, right? Like my best friend from high school got married 2 weeks ago. We've been talking about this day, I can't even tell you, 20 plus years. I wasn't there though. So devastating. And also like, I feel great about the decision, right? To stay at home. Boundaries being like, not only the things that teach others how to treat us, but boundaries that teach me how to treat myself.
So powerful, Kelley, and really, really helpful. I always find whenever I connect to you or get to chat with you as your friend, colleague, learn from you in a training, when you do them, that I'm reminded of my own beingness. And so in the ways that I get to give myself permission to just like be the way that I, Susanna, want to be. So I want to just affirm you, and in the moment, acknowledge that what you're sharing is so liberatory just in itself. And I think about, for like my aunties, my uncles, right? Like maybe some folks in your family, your communities, the folks who are like, I hear your boundaries, but I have laundry to fold. I have meals to prepare. I have work to do. I have, I want to practice yoga, but I don't even know where to start. Or I just lay out my mat and I see all the dust bunnies under my desk, and I want to go, I just go and clean them. Like, do you have anything that you can share with I'm thinking of our communities, our people, who, and for folks listening who how can we begin practically or continue a home wellness or self-care practice? Because that home practice, that's this invitation of the pandemic, really is that foundation of a personal practice or sadhana in yoga. And so I'm curious, what you say to people, what you say to family members or community when they ask you about this.
Yeah. It's really nuanced, right? It's even this space of like people who are caring for minors, right?
Yeah.
This has probably been the most learning period about those minors, about our capacity to care for those minors, about how caring for them is devalued, and how work is not split equitably. If you weren't clear before, most folks I know that are parenting or caregiving for children, they are clear now after this 12-month period. Like, I can't homeschool. I thought I could. I thought I wanted to. It sounded fun. Or, even like I thought that my partner and I split tasks 50-50. And I realized, no, actually, I do most of the work and they're fine with that. And there's no space to move. Like, people are coming to those realities, right? It's a reality that I've also had to navigate, not in terms of my partnership, but also I parent with more than one person, right? And so sitting with all of that is like, I cannot opt out of parenting. I cannot. I have chosen it and I'm grateful for the role. And also I can be real clear about my humanity within that role. I can decolonize how the people I'm in a relationship with view my responsibility in that role. I can, for myself, be clear with the people I'm caregiving, regardless of their age, that I have needs also. And so like, I have a 7-year-old person and a 5-year-old person that I live with, as well as another adult person. And they don't need a lot at this point. Mine don't, right? They know how to make food. They know how to wash their own clothes. They know how to clean up their room. They know how to clean the bathroom. Will they do it? Don't know, but they know how. And they still have needs. And I think about when I had like much smaller children, I at one time had 2 under 2. I was still communicating like, I'm really tired. I have to nurse you, nursling. And I am exhausted while we're doing this. This doesn't feel good, or I'm not enjoying it, or like, you'll have to wait, right? I need to use the bathroom alone because I need that time. So you have to wait outside this door, be on this gate, and acknowledging that might not feel right for you. And so I hear you crying. I acknowledge that you're upset that I have this boundary, but I still have this boundary, child, baby, partner. I'm not saying that it's easy, because every single thing is telling us that we can't do that. We can't set boundaries. I'm not saying everyone's boundaries can look the same. I'm saying everyone can set boundaries. And it's like when we make a new boundary, even if you think about it like visually and spatially, right? You're on a piece of land and you're inside of a very small pen. And so you can only see what's right there in front of you. But if you found the gumption to push the pin out a little bit more and it makes more space around you, then you might notice that there are some flowers 2 feet from you that were not 1 foot from you. And then we keep doing it until we get into this very spacious place to start to see that even though I have all of this space, I don't actually want to occupy all of it. That's great that it is available to me, but I will still be over here in this corner because this is what I need right now. And if I'm ready, I could walk to another. And I don't know if that like is landing with people listening or with y'all, but the invitation is to do what people say all the time around activism. Start where you are. Start where you are in the boundaries that need to be in place where you are. No one else is going to set the boundary for you. So I'm not saying that we don't clean up. Cleaning actually brings me a lot of joy. So I'm the opposite of people. I'm like, oh, we're jumping off Zoom? Great. Can't wait to vacuum. But that's me, right? For someone else, it might be that like, no, you don't have the resources to hire someone to come in and clean your house. But it's like, if you're a yoga teacher who's struggling to find space to do whatever it is for your business, and you have someone in your community who cleans houses but needs yoga, I need you to resource yourselves appropriately. What is the exchange for you to provide them with some yoga and them to come and clean your house while you sit and do your work? Like, I need us to be expansive in thinking about calling in what we need. Because part of systems of oppression tell us also that we can't ask for everything. We can only ask for a few things. And that's the history that we've navigated in America, right? We can ask for a few things at one time. That even comes up when it's time to vote, right? Around like, we can't ask for too many things because that'll scare away the moderates. And I'm willing to ask for everything for myself at this point. And I'm going to hold the space for other people to do that too. Because people can still say no, and that's fine. It gives you another perspective around what's available, how to resource yourself, the new boundaries that are needed. And I'm always really grateful when people are clear of me saying like, I have this boundary. It just happened to me a week ago. Someone wanted me to teach on a weekend, but I'm already teaching one weekend that month. And so I said to them, I've already committed to one weekend that month. So that's 2 days out of however many I get where I'm not working that I will have to work. And so we can move it to the next month. And they said to me, no, we definitely are going to do it in this month. And I said to them, thank you for making it clear that we won't be able to work together at this time. I hope that it's a success and that you'll keep me in mind in the future. But that doesn't mean it wasn't hard or scary, because I work for resources. And when I don't work, I'm set to get less resources, right? So it's still hard. It's still really scary, but it's also really liberating to be clear, because more work comes for the daytime, the in-between time. And it's also this place of like, we are getting to a more safe time to like create pods with people and be in community with people. This is a time for people to really think about like what it means to really be in community, what it would mean to be in a pod that's really well resourced, because this person cooks really well and this person doesn't mind doing all the grocery shopping and this person doesn't mind being the tech person to fix everything. Like, we could create anything we want, but our limited view stops us from creating what we actually need.
I love that. It's like, it's coming together. It's forming community. It's about, allowing ourselves to just be who we are. It reminds me of Mary Oliver's poem about wild geese. Just, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be the animal that you are. I'm paraphrasing this. She said it much more poetically, but you have to let the soft body of who you are love what it loves and do what it does. And it's a beautiful sentiment, but it also feels so difficult, as you alluded to. Like, some of that fear and some of that difficulty is self-imposed. And some of it is like the structures that we live in. And so that sort of radical reexamination that you're talking about, I think, allows us to figure out what's self-imposed. Like, did I create this? Or was it created for me? And regardless, how can I change it? So we just wanted to end with you've kind of alluded to it, but if there's anything else that you think of when you think of like the future of yoga, the future of our self-care practices, the future, like this future yoga studio that you don't want to reopen. But as we emerge from our homes, and hopefully that is soon, and we can be more connected with people, like, what is the thing that you're going to take from this time, this, magnifying glass, as you called it so aptly, into the future?
I think I'm going to take spaciousness and deep knowing that it's all coming, right? This emergence of equity being in the front has been something that equity in wellness and in the world has been a conversation since inequity was a conversation, right? It's like I believe that people at one time lived in right relationship with other humans and the earth. Now, the precipitating event where the one person said, you know what, I'm about to grab up power and I'm going to convince these other people to join me in that grab. I don't know that precipitating event. There's a lot of different mythology around how that could happen, right? But what I know is the conversations about what we want, what we deserve are not new conversations. The reasons we can have them is because someone else was having them before us. still we're not done with the work. And so I'm hoping that within 10 generations, we're at least in a place where we can be having even more nuanced conversations about the intricacies of equity across all different identities, and a place where our access isn't hinged up in our access to resources. Not just meaning like, oh, everyone can go and practice yoga, meaning that every human is so well resourced with every of their basic needs: food, water, shelter, care, safety, belonging. Like belonging is part of people's immediate needs. People are so well resourced that there is no grab. There is no need for there to be the place where you could go and have access, or the set of folks who are connected to it. We're all just ebbing and flowing in right relationship, which is the goal of the practice. And so it's this embodied, because our yoga studios, our wellness industrial complex is really just make manifest of a greater oppression systems, right? It's like, here's a window, because I work in many different spaces. I haven't worked in an industry that I owned a hair salon for 15 years. It was in wellness and beauty there. I'm connected to birthing. It's there. I'm in nonprofit work. It's there. In yoga, it's there. In education, it's there. It's in every single system. So it's like our wellness will always mirror our society. And so it's like my future vision of wellness is that we have a society so well that wellness is not even a thing. We're just well. It's just a natural part of our existence to be well, whether it's doing yoga or running or eating certain things or breathing certain ways, chanting, whatever. It's like everyone gets to return home and be whole. And it's like we don't have to, there's no industry of it.
That's so beautiful. And I absolutely 100% concur. Like, we don't have to talk about wellness anymore because it just is, it's just like, it's just what happens. And I love that.
Right. And even when people fall out of it, it's like, oh, I'm not well. It's not like, oh, look at that person over there, not well. It's like, they're not well. Everyone gather, they're not well, gather. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I so appreciate the embodiment of the vision and the tenderness and the grace that we can offer to ourselves and each other as we're moving towards it. And just appreciating you and wanting to celebrate and connect folks to where they can find you. Where do you want to be connected with, and what's supportive to you for, as you share yourself with the world, Kelley, and the work that you do. What are the invitations and the boundaries that you have for how folks can connect?
So people can't really cross my boundaries around connection. So however you find me on the internet is fine with me. I have a website. It's kelleynicolepalmer.com. My first name's Kelley though. So there's a great place to find me. I offer coaching in that space, privates in that space. I do supportive corporate, vision and movement. I have a Patreon that you can find there. If you just want to send me an email, my email is available there. I also prefer Instagram as a social media platform at this time. And my name on Instagram is I am Kelley Nicole. My boundaries are so tough. If I don't want to respond, I just don't. So it's just, yeah. I just don't anymore. I read it. Sometimes I'll save it. Like, this will be fun to snicker with later, but otherwise I'll just delete it and move on with my day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your practice and what you hold dear and how you're living your vision in the steps that you're taking right now. It is really inspiring and enlightening. It just offers me at least a different way of doing things, and perhaps even a more gentle way, creating some spaciousness in my life. So thank you for that.
No, thank you both. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Here's a guided meditation on how to bring this conversation into your practice of self-care and yoga right now.
So wherever you are, find an easeful way to be. You might want to sit or lie down, rest your back against a wall. If you're walking or driving, then keep your eyes open and your focus alert. Otherwise, you can let your eyes gently close or gaze at a spot in front of you. Take a deep breath, inhaling and exhale through your mouth. Another deep breath in and exhale. And as I invite the bell, you can let your breath return to its natural state. As you breathe, allow your awareness to rest on the boundaries of your form, your body. Feeling the outline from your feet to your legs, to your torso, your arms, your head and face. And sometimes the physical body feels one way, but our energetic body feels another way. And so if you can, in this moment, bring your awareness to outlining your energetic body, which might feel smaller or larger than your physical body. See what you notice. Does your energetic boundaries, your energetic shape feel small, close in, expanded, more tight or contracted, more open? Often the first step to creating healthy boundaries for ourselves is being aware of what's going on for us, what's going on inside of you right now. And with that awareness, you can expand, if you would like, your boundaries or contract them to create sacred space for yourself. So you might imagine encircling your body, your energetic space, with a shimmering orb of light. And you can choose the color of light that fits you, depending on how you would like to feel. Might be a different color based on your associations with the color that you imagine. This glowing light circling you, allowing in only what is beneficial, only what you wish to allow to enter. And that this beautiful, shimmering, shining light encircling you acts like a shield, and anything you don't wish to come into your energy or your space bounces off. As you inhale, this circle of light gets wider and stronger. And as you exhale, you relax, supported by the energy of this light encircling you. Inhale, imagining the light filling and expanding. Exhaling, trusting and resting at the center of this light. And it may be helpful to not only envision a light, but to imagine yourself now at the center of this circle in a favorite place in your world. And this might be a place in nature. It might be a place where you feel really safe, really supported. Could be a place that you've been in the past. Or if there is no place like that, then you could create this space in your mind's eye. Maybe you're on an island, under a tree, in a cozy room, curled up with a pet or friend. Still inside your glorious circle of light. Being nourished and supported by your unique sacred space. Receive from this space any messages or any support that you need to continue on in your day. To hold the boundaries that you need to hold. To take the risks or say the things that you need to say. To feel the nourishment that you deserve to feel. And then knowing that you can come back to this space anytime you would like. And knowing that this circle of light will always be around you. You can start to slowly sway or move a little bit, noticing that the light moves around you. And if it feels supportive, you can imagine that you're tucking in the light around you, just like you might tuck in a child, bringing your hands around your body and actually moving them or visualizing yourself moving your hands, tucking in this energy, knowing I keep for myself what is for me, and I allow anything that is not for my highest and best self to bounce off. So tucking in your energy, and then you can bring your hands to your heart, and we'll close together. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you so much for listening. We hoped you've experienced some connection, some helpful tools, and inspiration from this conversation.
For show notes and to get a stress-reducing meditation and tips for radical resilience, visit our website, ignitebewell.com/radical resilience. And if you got something from this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. Thank you.